Catalyst. I want to break open the topic of group visits today. It has been a long time since I had a podcast episode, and I wanted to update you on a buffet of group visit choices so that you can add value to your membership. Group visits are a great way to provide that touch point between patient visits, and it's a wonderful way to think outside the box or color outside the lines of how you can deliver your functional or integrative health practice. So in this episode, you're going to learn 7 different ways to run group visits. And spoiler alert, you can shift between many of these because I've done it. And I'll give you all my thoughts and secrets on all these 7 different group visit models. And you can start getting inspired to pick one that might just fit for your life. Welcome to The Catalyst Way, the podcast for women clinicians ready to clear the chaos and create space to flourish. I'm Dr. Lara, a former burned out family practice doctor turned mentor, author, and professional calendar whisperer. I help women in medicine reclaim time, trust their intuition, and build practices that actually fit their lives. Each week, you'll get practical tools, creative strategies, and tiny shifts that help you color outside the lines and paint a work-life masterpiece of authentic, aligned joy. Every episode has a story. This one starts way back 10 years ago as I was opening up my functional medicine practice in a small rural town in the Midwest. And I remember having a wonderful nutraceutical rep from a supplement company that I am not going to mention because I believe there's many great ones out there. But this one was particularly great because she would come around, and because I was new and making that bridge from conventional to functional medicine, she knew I had a huge learning curve. And if you're like me, a traditionally trained family medicine doctor, I felt like almost like I had to go way back to residency and school, learning all these different names and different supplements. So I made the very smart decision to only know 1 or 2 supplement lines very well, because honestly, you could just make yourself crazy by trying to learn all the different brands. That's a side note. But anyway, she was one of the ones that I really enjoyed. They promoted education, they had lots of events, and she made my life easier by giving me protocols and handouts and kind of cheat sheets so I could understand where certain supplements would live. Now, one of her suggestions was, you should try running a group visit. Pick a system like GI or stress and just start running group visits. And to me, it just didn't spark excitement. It sparked dread. I thought, how the heck could I do that? Inviting all these different patients in a room. What about HIPAA? What about goals? And everyone's personalized. Isn't that why I chose functional medicine? It's personalized. So how am I ever going to make that work? What if they all have questions? What if one person dominates the conversation? What if somebody never talks and I need to invite them to talk? What if I had all these immediate thoughts that just told me, okay, let's just hold that topic. Fast forward a few years later, I had made my bumps and bruises in functional medicine. I tried fee for service. That wasn't quite spanning out because, patients don't know when to follow up. You can't trust that they know when to send that lab kit in and when is the ideal follow-up. So it's much easier to have a package. I tried those too, and that didn't do well. It wasn't until I landed on membership. And once I had membership, it was great because people are invested and they're locked in and they're paying every month, and they get time with you, they get discounts on supplements, all these things that I teach inside my Catalyst Studio mentorship. And quickly I decided group visits had to be in the mix because how wonderful would it be to offer a group experience? So I learned from the greatest hits like Terry Walls and Jeff Geller. These are wonderful physicians in the functional space that have championed group visits. And I thought, what could that look like in my practice? Well, I'm going to go through 7 types. We're going to start with the very first one that didn't work. But I got to give myself credit for trying. This first one is called the Lunch and Learn, and I titled it Momentum Club. I thought it was a brilliant idea to open my office doors every Wednesday at noon and have kind of a free-for-all where the public could come and ask a question. I thought it was great because I had a little donation pot for our charity, and people did. They would come in and drop like $1, a $5 bill, and they could come in and ask any question. And I also had this very clear delineation. This is only education. I was not going to give any dosages or specific supplement recommendations. I was not going to talk about labs. They weren't going to get any medical advice. This is just to ask about functional medicine. They could come every week if they wanted, and they could learn from other people and myself. I quickly realized that drained my energy. While I do love educating and I do love talking to people, I didn't love that there wasn't consistency. I also didn't love that I didn't know who was walking in the door. And it felt like I thought I was doing a good job selling my services because some people did convert into patients. It just wasn't quite scratching that itch that I wanted. Group visits are designed to build community. And I felt like all this was sort of a glorified discovery call or a strategy session, which is absolutely fine. You can do that. I know a lot of practitioners that have this model where it's a group orientation. They just say, at the front desk, if you're interested in being a patient in our clinic, every Thursday at 3, we have a group orientation. You should come. And it's a beautiful thing. They have their staff walk them through the office. They get a tour, and sometimes they get a little freebie something, a little essential oil or a little sample of something. They get a flyer. They get, to meet the practitioners on site. Whatever it is, it can work brilliantly. It didn't work for me because I was a staff of 1 at the time. And I was just answering the questions to people that just ventured off and I never saw them again. Or if they were a patient later, that's great. But it didn't bring this cohesive community that was my reason for starting group visits. But, there are no mistakes in a Catalyst life. It's just another AFGO, another effing growth opportunity. So what did I learn from that? I learned that I feel drained when I'm feeling like I have to talk to public and answer questions that come out from nowhere. I like to be more prepared. I like to be more regimented. I also like to have a closed container because I really like to learn about people, about what their goals are. And when you do that in functional medicine, you're also opening up for behaviors and emotions. And so having a public forum just didn't feel like this safer, kind of authentic container that I was trying to build. So I scratched that idea and then I moved on to group visits using my office waiting room. And what I did is basically just had a little short list of topics that I wanted to talk about. And it started with the ones that I felt like I was repeating myself over and over with, like elimination diet or estrogen dominance, or what is dysbiosis, or, HPA axis imbalance, like just kind of the general stuff. And I told all my patients at the time, like every Thursday at 6 o'clock at night, you can come into my office. I'll have a few little gluten-free snacks and we can sit in the waiting room and I will talk for about 20 minutes. I'll record that. And then the rest is Q&A. You can ask questions. We can have a check-in with how you're doing. And I also live streamed that to the at-home people that couldn't come in. I'm in Wisconsin, also in Illinois, I'm licensed. So I had some people that were from Chicago area and, tuning in from other places. And this is before the pandemic. And so it was great because it was getting really strong where people would come in and enjoy meeting each other and enjoying to see who else in the community is like-minded. And it was wonderful because we got to use my beautiful office waiting room and have a moment of like fellowship. And I was quickly amassing a volume of educational topics that would really augment my office visit summaries. So when a patient would come in and see me and I uncovered that they may have had some dysbiosis or possible SIBO or whatever it is, I didn't have to spend their whole visit discussing it. I could say, I would like to give you a link to a recording that I did for one of my open office hours, my group visits, and it's all about this topic and it's going in a lot of depth so you can just watch it at home. And it's wonderful. Patients loved it because they didn't have to concentrate on absorbing what I was saying in that moment. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people get nervous at the doctor's office. Probably similar to me getting nervous talking to bookkeepers or financial planners. It's just not my zone of genius. So it feels like a whole foreign language. And I tend to have a different energy when I show up to those. I'm taking notes. I'm trying to learn and follow where they're going. And that's how the average patient feels when they're in front of a practitioner, especially functional medicine, because it's so complex. And so this was a great opportunity to dispel that. They knew that they could get this explanation in the comfort of their own home. They could rewatch the video, they could slow it down, they could speed it up, whatever they needed, and it improved their comprehension. So this style of group visit, the second style, was great because it was this hybrid of education with some Q&A and fellowship. And if anybody had a question or had a private concern that they didn't want to say in front of the group, I could just quickly pop them into my exam room, shut the door, have like a 5-minute check-in. Hey, what happened when you took that? Okay, here's what I recommend for diarrhea or whatever it is. And then I'd note it and I'd put it in their chart and they'd be out. It was beautiful. And what I learned is most people didn't need the privacy. It started out where a lot of people were a little more shy, but as people get to know each other and see the same familiar faces, it became like this little friendship where people be like, okay, now I'm having hot flashes. And, people just really had a great time. Now, yes, if you're listening, I did have disclaimers. I did have consent at the front door. Everybody signed it. I also have that in my terms and conditions in my paperwork when I have people join my practice. So, all of those things are legally safe, especially if you say things like, just so you know, what you say can be heard by others. If there is a private matter, you do not need to talk about this. All these things are covered in the terms and conditions. And I think I used that as a big stopping block before I decided to venture into this space. I thought that this would be so scary and put me at legal risk. And I think physicians and, PAs and nurse practitioners, we worry way too much and too unnecessarily about this stuff. We are educating and it's common sense, it just was a wonderful time. But then the pandemic happened. So then group visit type 3 happened, which was the online group visit. Easy. I just did exactly what I did in my office, but it was all online now. It was easy to scale. So when the pandemic hit, I was still running my group visits from day one, and it became a huge pillar of strength and support for my patients. They felt really lucky to have access to this physician every week at the same time. They knew where I would be. And so even if they hadn't seen me in the office for their own private visits, they would come because they knew they had questions and they wanted to get my opinion on it. Or, did you read this headline? What do you think? Now, if you're thinking what I thought, which is, I'm not going to know the answer right away, you're right. You won't. And guess what? That's awesome. Patients like to see a human. They don't like to see a perfect robot. Modeling this authenticity and transparency became my superpower. Patients knew that if they asked a great question and I was stumped, it was kind of like a gold star for them. And I would note it down and say, you know what, let me read about that. I didn't see that headline. Let me look at it and I'll come back to you with that next week. And so it became this beautiful ongoing dialogue. Hey, remember when Joan asked this question last week about this? I'm going to answer it now. And it only made our patient panel just more excited to engage, and they got to know each other on a deeper level. And this had sustained for years, this type of group visit. I call it the Catalyst group visit because it contains these elements. Number one, you start with a topic of education and you can record that. I use Zoom, and the first 20 minutes, I'm just recording my face and the slides. So you can use that recording over and over again. There's nobody else on screen. It's perfect. And once I hit stop, then the rest of it is not recorded. And that's the Q&A where people can come on screen, they can unmute themselves, they can ask questions. It's a wonderful opportunity. People will offer, other tips to other patients in the room, and I invite that. For example, if somebody is on day 5 of their elimination diet and they're feeling the Hersheimer reaction, before I offer my expertise, I take a step back and I say, does anybody in the room have any advice for, Teresa here? And it's so cool to see people that have been doing this for a while, or maybe they're on their 3rd year with me and they've done a cleanse every year. And they're like, oh yes, this is the snacks that I live by. This is the kind of things that help me. I do Epsom salt baths. I do a little activated charcoal, whatever it is. I let other people give advice because I believe the purpose of functional medicine and any integrative medicine model is truly to allow patients to integrate this into their life and to help others' lives. So I really enjoyed seeing my community help each other. And having this open Q&A was beautiful. Now, I still offer private quick check-ins. If somebody does have a sensitive topic, I put them into a breakout room in Zoom. And I leave everybody else in the main room. I give them a topic. I have a little list at my desk. little, kind of prompts. Why don't you discuss when was the last time that you struggled with a friend that was unhealthy and you wanted to help them? And how do you navigate that balance of unsolicited advice, but trying to inspire them to make changes? Like something that would take a lot more than just a yes and no answer. I let the main room discuss it. I bring that patient into a breakout room privately. We have a quick chat. I note it in their chart, and then we go and resume in the big room. This type of group visit is also excellent for those of us that maybe don't want to educate every single week. You invite guest experts in your community. So I've had chiropractors, breath workers, massage therapists, I've had acupuncturists, all sorts of experts in my area give a talk. And it's great revenue for them because they get more clients, they get to educate, and it also helps our community know all the healthy, like-minded businesses in the area. And lastly, of course, the object of this kind of group visit is it not only builds community, but it helps make my visits easier because I keep amassing a huge video archive library of topics. This type of Catalyst group visit makes it really easy to involve other staff like nutritionists, health coaches. You can have them come in and teach, SMART goals or how to understand the nutritious values in your favorite fast food choices. Or what would you do to nourish your gut after you had a New Year's Eve celebration of indulgence? These kinds of things. There's endless amounts of topics that they can educate on. And you can easily fold them in and again, create this video archive of wonderful resources for paying patient members. It adds this extra value to your membership that really can't be priced because I can't imagine anywhere else you can go in healthcare where you know exactly where your provider is going to be at exactly that time and you can get your question answered and you get educated in the process of it. It's beautiful. Quick pause. If you're loving this podcast and secretly dreaming about building a functional or integrative practice that doesn't burn you out, you're my person. Catalyst Studio is the 12-month mentorship for women clinicians who want to build or scale a membership-style practice. We mix practical business strategy with creativity and flow so that you can build a thriving practice that actually fits your life. Come join us. It is the mentorship I wish I had had. You'll find all the information at drlarasalyer.com/catalyst. The fourth type of group visit is something that I experimented with along this way. I shifted to a curriculum-based group visit where I had a 12-week curriculum that was standard and set, and it was the same 20 minutes to 30 minutes at the beginning of the hour was a specific topic in that 12-week curriculum. And then I would just repeat that 12-week curriculum with like a week break in between. In group visit models, I host my group visits every week. You certainly don't have to do that, but I find that weekly group visits are the best because you're not going to get somebody showing up every week, but it allows consistency so they know, oh, it's Thursday or oh, it's Monday, and they don't have to think, is it the fourth Monday of every month? Is it every other? Is it the even? Like there's no thought. It's just you're there. And it's never wasted time because you're recording. So even if people aren't there, you've got a video that you just produced. So this curriculum was just a 12-week process that I marched through 3 or 4 times. And then I got tired of that and I decided, okay, I've been there, done that. What's next? And I came upon the 6th model, which is what I use now. And I call it the Open Office Hours Help Desk. This was actually started as a response from my feedback surveys, which if you've been listening to any of my podcasts, you know I'm crazy about feedback. You need to be asking for it. I can do another deep dive in that, but you can look in my archives and I will put the episode in the show notes of some of the past podcasts where I talk about how to ask for feedback and how to use it well in your practice. Patients really want you to succeed and they want to shape your practice with you. So let them. Asking feedback can be really helpful because you aren't spending time trying to guess what your community needs or wants. And you get zeroed in on exactly what needs to be changed or improved. Now, a caveat is don't read the feedback when you haven't had caffeine or you haven't had a good night's sleep. You really need to center your nervous system because it can feel personal, but it's not. It's a growth opportunity. And so when I read the feedback several years ago from my patients, they said, it'd be really nice to see you more often than once a week. I can't make it at night on Thursday, whatever this was. And A lot of them had been through the education already, and they're like, I just need my questions answered. I'm, back at work. The world had changed. So I was able to shift with the world into the pandemic and then out of the pandemic. And once the pandemic had kind of teetered out, people were back to work, they were busy again, they were carting their kids around, the evening fellowship group visit hours no longer fit for a lot of the types of patients that I worked with. And they were asking for like a help desk. They're like, I would love to just know where you're at so I can ask a quick question and be on my day. And I thought, okay, let's try it. And so I did. I opened up to Tuesdays and Thursdays just for half an hour and on Zoom, and patients can pop in, and often they'll stay for the whole time and they'll see other people they know. Because obviously, when they ask a question and I start talking about it, it is contagious. The other patients in the room are like, oh, I've always wondered about that. Well, what do you think about this? And then they're talking, and it just kind of creates a beautiful opportunity for organic conversation and education to occur. I do not record these because I have so many videos now. I have years of archived videos that I have no trouble finding a topic in my visit summaries. So I'm kind of done with recording, and I just have this help desk variation of a group visit. Now, I may go back to doing more special guests or, expos, but for now, this is just kind of scratching the itch that I need because my career has changed. I've evolved my services. I'm all virtual now. So this just fits perfectly. And it shows you that you can be brave to listen to feedback and to allow your services to shift, because ultimately you're creating a business to support your work-life legacy. And the only reason I picked Thursdays at 6 o'clock for my very original group visit is because my daughter had dance class at night and I was in town. I had to come in from the country and I came in town. I thought, well, if I'm here, I might as well have a group visit. It's a perfect time. And it was just serendipity. The pandemic happened. It was perfect. But then to watch how your community shifts, watch the kind of patients that you are taking care of and ask what they need. I'm not saying you'll always serve them, because when they kept asking for more frequent touch points, I thought, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to be available twice a week. That's a lot of teaching. And then I read more of this feedback, and it wasn't that they needed the teaching anymore. They felt comfortable. They just wanted this consistency of availability. And I thought I could do that. So, I implemented a small little Google form that they'll take before they get in the room that just gives me an update. Where are they at? Do they have any questions? It helps me understand where they're coming from. And it's just a simple help desk. So I've really enjoyed this model. And I don't know if I have any visions to shift from this specific model anytime soon, but I'm open to letting my own desires and goals shift this as I grow as well. And I'm always looking for patient feedback. So we'll see. You might have to see if there's a future podcast episode all about maybe another version of a group visit that I do next. Before I move on to the sixth type of group model, I just want to say again, this really low effort, high yield model of being online and just being available it shouldn't be underestimated how important that is. I think us as practitioners forget how valuable just our presence is. We worry that we have to over deliver. We worry that we have to educate. We have to have a perfectly PowerPointed topic ready to go. We have to have all the answers. We have to be Google and ChatGPT combined. We have to compete with all of those resources. Oh no, AI is here. It's all these worries and fears. And you're missing the huge point is that it's you and you're just holding presence. And that if you're there and you commit to saying, I'm here and I'm a resource for you, and this is included in your membership payment, it's huge. I can't tell you how often on their exit surveys that they have said the number one thing they were grateful for, besides the Loom videos of their labs, which everyone loves, is this group visit. They were able to just know that I was there, and it was like a home that they could come in the front door, kind of ask a question, put their feet up on the couch, and then get out when they're done. And they just loved having that security, because the world is chaotic and there's a lot of information out there that is oversaturating our brain. So having your presence alone, even if you say, that's an interesting question, John, let me go research that and I'll get back to you, that's okay. Just having the confidence to be showing up. And even if 0 people come, because that happens, you're going to have that happen. I still have that happen. It's not time wasted at all. It is time invested in showing up for your people. And so, yeah, I just love the current version that I'm in. I guess I could call it the 5th version. So now let's talk about the 6th one. We call this the flipped version. And this is actually not one of mine. It's some of what my practitioners do inside the Catalyst studio, where they will film a short education portion before the group visit. They'll send it to their people ahead of time. And the idea is that the group visit becomes just a Q&A all about that video. So it's like a video on demand. They will film a topic, they'll send it out via email just to their members only. They'll watch it, and then they'll come to that group visit with questions. And that's a great way for those of us that may not want to educate live. You know, it's a great way to step your toe in the water. This is a great option if you're interested in doing the Catalyst group method, which is educating live and having a Q&A. And maybe you're a little nervous. You don't know if you want to educate live. You get nervous with public speaking. This is the perfect segue. You can record your video ahead of time and get all your kinks out. I'll be honest, you're going to take longer because whenever I record something like this podcast, I'm always stopping and starting again and editing. And it's the inner perfectionist in all of us. So you might think that it's going to be easier to film a video. It's actually a lot harder. So I chose to do it live because it forced me. And I kind of like that dopamine of like, let's do it. Let's be on stage and just fumble through our words and say, I don't know, and do the best we can. It really accelerated my comfort level much faster than it would if I just stayed recording. But this is a great option to do the flipped method. You can come up with a stack of topics, record a 20-minute video, give it to your members, and then say, okay, at this time, on this date, at our normal scheduled time, we're going to talk about it. So bring your questions. Beautiful. It's a great way to ease into that and see if your community likes it. Remember, feedback is king, queen. Okay, and the 7th group visit I would call more of a wild card. This is not a standing group visit, but more of just little inspirational topics that you might consider. You could consider having cooking classes. Why not? Some practitioners are doing only cooking classes as their group visits. That's it. They do the standard visit, one-on-ones. They have a membership, and with that membership comes a cooking class every month where the patients are given the list of grocery items to have on hand, and they're all cooking together in their own homes. Sometimes you can do it together if you have access to an industrial kitchen, or maybe you go into your community and see, do you have any really healthy restaurants that would be open to having this idea and creating an event? The public could pay for it, but your members would have a free seat. And this would become a wonderful way to involve the community in learning how to cook differently. Book clubs are also a popular idea. Instead of worrying about how am I going to make my group visits educational every time, just have a group visit that is a book club. And you do one book every month or every other month. And you can still reserve some Q&A at the end for some private medical questions or some tweaking of, concerns or challenges. It can adapt, but you can have it founded upon a book club and just chunk it out. We're going to do chapters 1 through 5 this week. We'll do 6 through 10 next week. It can be very easy to do. And lastly, don't forget these group opportunities like a shared experience. You can have an open expo. I did that one time where I invited speakers from other businesses like our local gym, a chiropractor. We had a health coach. We had a hypnotist. And it was really cool because we had like a basket raffle, we had a fundraiser, and it was a big expo. That was like an annual thing. But you could make them smaller. You could make them quarterly dinners or quarterly hikes or ways that you just invite the community to come. One time I had a creative night where people could come and we just did some creative art activities that were goals based, right? For health and for wellness and personal and professional goals. And it was just a nice way for me to put my passions out there. And the idea is that this is your playground. You get to decide. And if you're somebody who loves books, or if you're somebody who loves cooking, or you're somebody who loves art, like step and lean into those nudges and let it take you to places you never thought could be of service to the greater good of medicine. Medicine isn't just pharmaceuticals or supplements or nutrition protocols. Medicine is your presence. You are medicine. Doing activities like learning is medicine. This is medicine for our communities. And this is exactly what we need in the future of how we deliver healthcare. Okay, so if you are caught in an eddy of water, you are swirling around, maybe you're a reflective river, If you don't know what that is, we have 4 catalyst archetypes, and you should take the quiz at drlarasalyer.com/create. It will tell you which of the 4 catalyst archetypes you are, and we do have all 4 inside us, but maybe right now you're feeling more like this reflective river type, and you've just been inundated by all these ideas, and you're excited, but you don't know what to do, and you're just caught in a swirl. Please, let's connect. There are so many ways to make group visits a key offering in your membership, and patients love it. But here's what I want you to hear right now. There isn't one perfect way. You've heard 7 different ways to invite group visits into your membership model. The key is you get to choose, and you can change your mind like I did. And you can ask your community what they would like to see. And you can co-create this experience together. So instead of feeling paralyzed by how can I make this group visit perfect, just think, how can you make it sustainable, easy, low barrier for you to commit to just a couple months of it, and see if you like it. And if you don't, change it. You have 7 different ways that group visits work. And if you have a group visit type that isn't mentioned here, please drop it below in the comments. I would love to hear what has been working for you in your community. And as always, thank you so much for coloring outside the lines of healthcare, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to The Catalyst Way, where we clear the chaos and create space to flourish in medicine and life. If today's episode lit a spark in you, your next step is to go take the Catalyst Archetype quiz. It's fun, free, and freakishly accurate. Go to drlarasalyer.com/create. In less than 5 minutes, you'll uncover your burnout risk, your creative strengths, and work rhythms that energize you. Because it's not about finding a perfect plan, but rather flowing with the one that fits you.